Actually,
I might take this home.
You should. It's your team.
I'm gonna take this home and I'm gonna wear it. I'm gonna
Just
wear
every Sunday.
No, just
Around.
when I spend time with my wife.
Ah, yes. You'd be dressed. You'd be like, I'm dressed.
I'm gonna wear this and nothing else.
Oh, man.
Terrifying visual. Particularly if you picture the unicorn and the teddy bear in the visual with you on the belt.
You spend time in a different room.
And the title belt.
Yeah.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour, where we are all properly dressed for work today. I'm your host here, Connor Rogers, alongside Jay Croucher and Matthew Berry, who is out in Kansas City as we get ready for the kickoff of the NFL season. Berry, how was the flight in?
You know what? It was a struggle, to be perfectly honest with you. I had to do two different drafts. No, seriously. I had to do two different drafts. And I don't want to mention the airline, but it rhymes with Smelta. And the internet, they advertised to me, hey, there's going to be strong internet on this flight to Kansas City. I got two drafts that I have to do this night. It's the only way I can get to Kansas City in time to do the show here live for us, right? Because I have to go to the stadium later today. Big money draft, 16-team league, and the internet's not working. I can't log on to the draft room, so I'm texting with the commissioner. At least the texting service is working, and I'm able to text, and he's texting me every the picks, and I'm texting back who I want, everything like that. And then all of a sudden, the internet just goes out. And I say to the flight attendant, I'm like, what's going on with the internet? And they go, oh, yeah, we just decided to reset it. I'm like, well, how long does it take to reset it? 30 minutes. 30 minutes! So, I'm texting with a guy, and it doesn't go out, and I'm just like, I need another running back. I need a running back, And I'm like, and he's been texting me who's available. I'm like, hey, Jaylen Warren's still there. Get me Jaylen Warren. And then I finally come back on, and I'm like, who'd you get me? And he goes, sorry, I got you Tyler Boyd.
A nerve-wracking draft for Matthew, and a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, it was awful. Anyway, that's my one piece of advice. My one piece of advice is if you have to fly during a draft, pick a different airline than the random one that I just mentioned.
Unbelievable.
See if you can pick the clues to figure it out. It was awful. It was awful. It was.
I know, Matthew. I know you sit at the back of the plane, Matthew, and sometimes the Wi-Fi doesn't extend to 34C. But hopefully next time you have better luck. And to be fair, when you're on the ground, you often don't make your draft picks in timely fashion either. As we found out in person, she kept on trying to pause the draft in real time in the fantasy league draft.
Listen, you know what you're gonna do? You know what you're gonna do, Jay Croucher? You're gonna get me in trouble because I've already killed one brand and now I'm gonna kill another one because it's just because the default rankings on the site that we used for the draft, which I did not want to use, I was overruled. I wanted to use a different site that I think is better, but I was overruled on that and whatever. It just happened once. And luckily, I had already had Tank Dell queued because I love me Tank Dell. You know what? I've said this before. I say it again. Tank Dell this year will become a thing. It will become a thing. Anyway, I like the fact that we're all wearing black today. We're all wearing black. I assume. For me, I chose this is a T-shirt that represents. This is from a bar in Nashville. The Lucky Bastard, actually. Jimmy Buffett spent a lot of time in Nashville. No idea if he ever went to the Lucky Bastard, but he did spend a lot of time in Nashville, so a bit of an honor to him. I assume, Jay, you're wearing black just to mourn your fantasy team, which is already dead?
Yeah, exactly right, Matthew. Exactly right. Very good gag.
I knew that.
Very good start.
That's what I thought. Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, man. All right, that was phenomenal. Let's get into the Rotoworld Player news. And, of course, for all your Rotoworld Player news, you can go to NBCSports.com. And where else to start? Listen, you know who drinks free today. It is Travis Kelce drafters that drink free today at the Happy Hour bar because they are sweet. You see Barry's reactions right now. They are sweating. And we're going to get into all that in just one moment here, Barry. But before we do, let's hear what Andy Reid had to say on the Travis Kelce situation for the opener.
As far as injuries go, Kelce hyperextended his knee today, so we'll just see how he does going forward.
You expect all those injured guys on your list?
I'll tell you what with the injuries. I'll give them to you tomorrow, or game day, and I can't say it. Everybody's good to go. You'll see the acts when we get there.
Did you see what happened with Kelce when he got injured?
Yeah, it was right in front of me. Yeah. Hyperextended his knee. Yeah.
Anything else?
Okay, good.
A very brief addressing.
Pretty happy to get out of there.
Yeah, that was the
Andrew?
fastest I've seen Andy Reid move in quite some time, I got to admit. And another reminder, Kelce Drafters, you drink free today. I mean, Jay, this is a fantasy nightmare, I would call it, when you're looking at the opener. Now, obviously there are solutions, and we'll get to that in a second. I know Matthew posted some of them on Instagram already. But what is just your entire take on this situation?
I mean, the fact that it's a hyperextended knee, like that's the description of what happened to it. It's not a description of the actual injury and the mechanism. Like, Is it a bone bruise? Is it a PCL? It seems like ACL has been ruled out.
Yes.
That was the absolute
intact
doomsday scenario. So I think that the most likely outcome is that I don't think he's going to play on Thursday night, and the betting market believes that as well. So the line has moved towards Detroit. I think it's probably going to be a 1 to 2 week thing, but we're just guessing at this point.
Matthew, from a pure fantasy roster standpoint, how do you handle this situation? Besides monitoring Kelce, what is your backup strategy if you are somebody that took him in the first round of a fantasy draft?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about this, and honestly, it obviously depends on your league settings. First off, I agree with Jay. I think it's unlikely that he plays. We'll see. We'll see how it goes, but my expectation here is it not. To Jay's point, by the way, it opened at -6.5. It's now Chiefs -4.5, and the total has dropped down to 52.5, where it opened at 55. So certainly the betting markets do not think Kelce's going to play, and it has a negative effect on the Chiefs' offense, which is sort of obvious there, right? What I would say is the way I'm approaching this is, like, if you're picking a Chiefs tight end to start in place of Kelce, I think it's Noah Gray, who, had some success at college, has, had moments with the Chiefs as well. Remember, 31% of Mahomes' pass attempts last year went to the tight end position. Obviously, a lot of that is dictated because Travis Kelce is, Travis Kelce. All of that said, I'm probably not picking up Noah Gray unless I absolutely have to, and it's just a crazy deep league. What I would like to do is, if you have an IR spot, okay, great. Then you can put Kelce into the IR spot and see who's available on your waiver wire. Our week 1 ranks are up on NBCSports.com. You can sort of see who's the highest available player in your league. There's some guys out there that I think are interesting. By the way, if Mark Andrews misses, and we'll see if he practices today, but if Mark Andrews misses the game, Isiah likely against Houston becomes really interesting. But what I would do is, if I don't have an IR spot, so if I have an IR spot that's easy, then you just pick kind of the best available that's in your league, and you check out our rankings. But if you don't have an IR spot, then here's what I'm doing. I'm not panic dropping somebody good on my team to pick up a 1 week rental at tight end. What I would do is I would sort of ride it out. I would keep Kelce in my starting tight end spot, assuming he's the only tight end. And then I would sort of see how Sunday plays out, right? Because there's a chance, luckily, since he plays Thursday night, there's a chance that, in essence, you dominate on Sunday anyway, and you don't need to replace your tight end position. Or, conversely, you get your butt kicked, and it doesn't matter who you'd have in the tight end position. If it gets into Sunday night or Monday Night Football, and you're like, hey, I need a tight end, then hopefully you've configured your roster so that there is somebody that you can drop, and then you go pick up somebody that's available in the Sunday night game. Waller's obviously taken in your game, but Jake Ferguson, the rookie tight end for the Cowboys, he's probably available in your league. You think about the Monday night game. Dawson Knox is available in about 70% of Yahoo leagues, so my expectation is he'd be out there for Monday night. Dalton Kincaid probably taken, but in case he wasn't drafted in your league, you can look at Kincaid for the Bills as well, and then Tyler Conklin on the Jets side. So that's what I would do if I didn't have an IR spot. I would sort of wait to see how Sunday played off and not drop somebody good for a 1 week rental. If we find out in the next day or two that it's going to be a multi-week injury for Travis Kelce, and so far the reports are positive, ACL's intact, there's some tightness in the knee, and they're just waiting for the swelling to go down. Assuming that's the case, great. But if it's going to be a multi-week injury, then you can pick up Noah Gray, who suddenly becomes a high-end tight end too for me.
Jay, outside of who this directly impacts, which is, of course, Travis Kelce, when you look at the rest of the Chiefs' offense, I mean, this is a lot of volume to go around if Kelce doesn't play, whether it's the target share, the touchdown equity. Where do you think the ball starts to go from Mahomes in this offense? Because a lot of people might say, hey, maybe just Noah Gray comes in and takes that over. But he's not going to take over the full workload that Kelce gives from the tight end position, as we show the Chiefs career receiving touchdowns of guys on that roster right now. It's really Kelce with a whopper there at 85, MVS at 18, and then guys that haven't hit double digits.
Yeah, we saw in the playoffs when the Chiefs were seeing all their pass catchers go down that MVS kind of became the guy as just the entrenched vet who Mahomes had a good rapport with. I think we're going to see a lot more Sky Moore this season. We'll see what Kadarius Toney and his health is doing. But I think what they're going to do more is just run the ball. Because the Lions had a terrible rushing defense last year. We've seen the Chiefs in the second half of the season using Pacheco more. So I think it'll be a big Pacheco game. I have more confidence in that than any of those guys individually stepping up on Thursday night.
Barry, what about you? How do you look at this group? Especially, you have somebody like Jerick McKinnon that showed how much of an impact he can have on the pass game for this offense as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think actually you see a decent amount of McKinnon. It's weird. We know how Pacheco gets used, and also Clyde Edwards-Helaire played more than you would think in the preseason. So I wonder if it's kind of a three-headed monster and they just go run heavy in this game. Look, it's going to be a lot of guys. My expectation is that the starting pass catchers, you're going to have Sky Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and then, maybe, Justin Watson and Richie James out there as well. Justin Ross, he'll have a little bit of a package as well. You'll get a package for Kadarius Toney. It is, as always, going to be death by 1,000 cuts when you face the Chiefs. If I had to pick somebody, I'm picking Sky Moore. That would be the guy that I would want to play against the Lions on Thursday night. Again, if I'm starting a tight end for the Chiefs, I think it's Noah Gray. But yeah, I like McKinnon and Pacheco. And on a one-game slate, if you're playing DFS, maybe even Clyde Edwards-Helaire as a dart throw, as a cheap dart throw. But Sky Moore would be the guy that I would pick if I had to pick a Chiefs pass catcher not named Travis Kelce.
Of course, we will keep a close eye on
this. But it's all dicey.
This situation, and we will be back on tomorrow, hopefully, with more of an update on Kelce's status. Let's get into your 10 bold predictions here, Barry, for 2023. And Jay, you're going to love with what number one starts with here. Number one is Sam Howell finishes as a top 10 quarterback.
Shocker. Absolutely floored by this one, that Matthew would be high on Sam Howell. At the same time, I don't mind it just relative to ADP. And we spoke about this a little bit last week about how all the buzz is about Anthony Richardson right now and what he's going to do. But the fact is that Sam Howell ran more in college. He was more accurate as a passer in college. I think he's got better weapons than Anthony Richardson. So he just kind of added it all up. And I know Richardson is more of an unknown, so there's more upside there and there's more that's untapped. But I think the gap between those two in terms of their perception is a little bit too wide right now.
Barry, how did you land here?
Yeah, well, listen, first off, just thank you, Jay, for saying all those nice things about Sam Howell. I know that absolutely killed you to do so. My only request going forward is, again, please refer to him by his proper name, future Hall of Famer.
Sure,
Sam Howell is how you can refer to him. But, my expectation, again, it's just the rushing, right? I mean, we've seen this before. It is the rushing, over 1,100 yards his senior year in college, which you referenced, Jay. Pretty good weapons. I also think this is just a narrative-based thing. But in addition to having the weapons around him with McLaurin and Dotson, and it looks like McLaurin is looking like he's got a pretty good chance to play in week one, and then Curtis Samuel and the running backs, plus his rushing. The other thing is I think you've got Eric Bieniemy as his play caller. And maybe I'm crazy. I know I have no inside knowledge on this. This is just a gut call. That Eric Bieniemy has heard all the chatter. Hey, you're just an Andy Reid protege. Hey, Andy Reid's the one who deserves all the credit. Eric Bieniemy continues to wait a long time to be a head coach in the NFL. So he's moved out of Kansas City. Now he's calling the plays. I feel like Eric Bieniemy wants to make a statement. My expectation is that it's an aggressive offense, that it's a down the field offense. So I think it's not going to be conservative. It's not going to be a run heavy, plodding kind of offense that we've seen in previous years for the Commanders. So yeah. Future Hall of Famer Sam Howell starts the campaign this year as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. That is bold prediction number one.
Another bold prediction coming out of the NFC East, of course. Number two is Tony Pollard finishes as the RB1 in fantasy this year, Barry.
Yeah, I'm not even sure it's all that bold, right? I mean, I just think the problem is that people, like, there was some hype, and then it just sort of died down for whatever reason. Like, he's on the cover of the Rotoworld Draft Guide for a reason. 13 career games where he's gotten at least 15 touches, right? 13 career games where he's gotten at least 15 touches. He averages 19.6 fantasy points per game. That would have been RB3 last year. Obviously, with no Ezekiel Elliott there and not a lot behind him, Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn. Like, the expectation here is that Tony Pollard's going to touch the ball at least 15 times a game, if not more. Mike McCarthy has said he wants to run. This is a guy who was the second best running back in fantasy from weeks 8 through 16 last year. So he needs to put it together through an all season. But number one running back in fantasy is within the range of outcomes for Tony Pollard. I honestly don't even know if it's that bold. I'm bald, but that's bold. But anyway, Tony Pollard, RB1, is bold prediction number 2.
Jay, as you see Pollard here in Tier 2, with only in this tier Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, and Bijan Robinson ahead of him. Of course, Austin Eckler and McCaffrey are in Tier 1. Really, what's in the way for Tony Pollard to not finish as the top running back? Because we've seen him be an absolute star on weeks that Zeke Elliott was down. We know the Cowboys usually have a pretty good offensive line, and they've added some young talent to it over the years. And they are a team under Mike McCarthy that we think is going to want to run the football.
Yeah, I think the only thing that is stopping him is what stops most running backs, which is health. And we do kind of forget with Pollard that he did break his leg. He did break his leg last time we saw him. So he's got to show that he's 100% over that, which he should be. But I think just the fact that last year, he basically did nothing the last 2 weeks of the season. Didn't play week 17. Week 18 was a meaningless game for the Cowboys. Did nothing there. Still finished as running back 8 on the season with Ezekiel Elliott taking so many of his carries. So I think the Pollard, I would be taking him over guys like Saquon Barkley, and I'd be comfortable taking him over, Derrick Henry, those types of players. I just think that his upside as a receiver in that offense is just so explosive.
Barry, this time another prediction for a player in Tier 2, but this player in Tier 2 of wide receivers, and that is Chris Olave, who was one of the runner-ups for Offensive Rookie of the Year last year, had a massive target share for the Saints and gets an upgrade in quarterback in Derek Carr. You wrote for number 3, Chris Olave finishes as a top 5 wide receiver this season.
Yeah, look, I'm at wide receiver 12, but I think he makes the leap. From week 2 on last year, almost a 29% target share. He's played 11 games last year where he got at least 6 targets, average over 15 fantasy points per game. While I know Jay Croucher continues to insist how good Michael Thomas is going to be and how many targets Michael Thomas is going to get and just how awesome Michael Thomas is going to be this year for the Saints, I just personally am a Chris Olave fan of the receiving core of New Orleans. And so Derek Carr, who we've talked about a lot, really good at throwing the deep ball. He's very good, top 5 in the NFL last 2 years in deep ball completion percentage and deep ball pass attempt rate. My expectation here is that Olave takes that next step. And, I think most people are thinking of him as a good wide receiver 2, and I think at this time next year we'll be talking about him as a wide receiver 1.
Jay, would you draft Olave over any of these other guys in Tier 2 as he sits behind, of course, ride or die Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, and Jalen Waddle, and just T. Higgins and Devontae Smith after him here in Tier 2?
Yeah, I think you can make the case. I would take Amon-Ra and CeeDee Lamb over Olave, but I might take Olave over everyone else in that tier. And I think the 2 things with Olave: 1, he was 2nd in the league last year for average depth of target, and that was with Andy Dalton. Derek Carr should, as Matthew outlined, be more helpful on the deep ball front. And then secondly, he was 7th in the league for average yards per route run last year, in between basically Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp. So, he was a monster last year. I think he should have been right there neck and neck with Garrett Wilson for Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's just kind of obscured a bit in New Orleans in a weird season for them. But I think Olave is a monster who could absolutely be top 5.
Number 4 here, Jay. Bijan Robinson rushes for 2,000 yards. This show, at times, has given Arthur Smith a pretty tough time, especially for the usage or lack thereof of Kyle Pitts last year. But if we know anything about Arthur Smith with his days in Tennessee and Derrick Henry, is that he can force feed a running back like no other.
He can. I don't think he's going to get 2,000 yards rushing just because of Algier and Cordarrelle Patterson and the fact that he's a rookie, but I think he could absolutely get 2,000 yards from scrimmage. And I also think that he could get 1,500 plus rushing yards, win the rushing title. I think that right now he's 50-1 to win Offensive Player of the Year. To me, that's way too big. That's just because he's a rookie. If he has the best case, he'll just win that award. So I think the Bijan, he's got all the upside in the world.
Is he a value when you look at the rushing leader odds, which are obviously led by guys like Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, I mean, I think they're a little dated when Jonathan Taylor is still in the mix. That'll be updated, of course. But then Bijan, those are big expectations with him basically being number 3 realistically on this list at plus 1,000.
Yeah, I don't really like the plus 1,000 odds here. Again, I think it's just you're better off backing 50 to 1 to win Offensive Player of the Year. The calculation there is Bijan Robinson a 1 in 5 chance to win Offensive Player of the Year if he wins the rushing title? I absolutely think that he is. So I think that 50 to 1 OPOY is a bit better, but he's in the mix to win the rushing title. But I think that Chubb and Henry probably have the edge there.
Barry, when you look at this bold prediction, of course, Bijan rushing for 2,000 yards, do you have confidence Arthur Smith will be able to contain himself and not give too many carries to a guy like Tyler Algier, who did have over 1,000 yards last season as a rookie?
I have zero confidence that Arthur Smith will, contain himself and do. But I don't think it's going to matter. Is my point is again, the Falcons led the NFL in running back rushing yards last year. They had the second most running back carries, and so I'm thinking hopefully that even if Algier gets 8-10 touches a game, that there's enough volume there for Bijan Robinson. I agree with Jay. I think 2,000 yards from scrimmage is a much obviously more likely outcome than 2,000 rushing yards for Bijan Robinson. Derrick Henry in 2 seasons under Arthur Smith had over 1,500 yards as well, and obviously that was a very run-heavy offense. But, listen, they're bold predictions. The fact of the matter is that the idea with bold predictions is never for me to nail the bold prediction, but merely to sort of plant a flag on people that I have a strong opinion about, and I'm a big fan of Bijan Robinson.
Well, Barry, this next one we get a very early look at because this duo will be on the debut of the NFL season on Thursday night on NBC, of course. Number 5, both Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery finish as top 15 running backs.
Yeah, look, I think if you look at sort of how the Lions are constructed, right? I mean, they have a really good offensive line. They have, kind of an old school football coach. Right, Ben Johnson as the offense coordinator is much more modern, but Dan Campbell, we're going to bite your kneecaps off, right? He's Mr. Rough and Tumble, and I think that's what they want to do, especially when you think about their passing game that really, has a rookie tight end, has Marvin Jones, who's towards the end of his career, Josh Reynolds, who's never been nothing more than a wide receiver 4 or 5, Jameson Williams is out for the first 6 games, and then, of course, they've got my ride or die Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think this is going to be a run-heavier team than people expect, and so between those two guys, kind of a thunder and lightning, if you will, with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, both guys, Montgomery with the touchdowns, Gibbs with the pass catching, both guys have a path to top 15 potential this year. So that's the bold prediction there. Both guys, I think both guys are values in drafts this year, and I think both guys finish the year as a top 15 fantasy running back. That's bold prediction number 5.
Yeah, and the fact that what is happening with the Chiefs right now, that's just an extra boon for them. I mean, it's incredible. The Lions are likely going to get the Chiefs without Chris Jones, without Travis Kelce. Those two guys combined are worth close to a field goal for the line. The line got to 7 at one point. Now, as Matthew noted, down to 4.5. And so that's just going to help Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery this week in particular.
And I think with Gibbs, you can see usage, I've said this before on this show, comparable to what Alvin Kamara was during his best, during his peak with the Saints in terms of the usage in the pass game, where you don't get scared of drafting David Montgomery where his ADP is because the touchdown equity and the red zone usage and just the run in between the tackles in between the 20s. So I like that one a lot, Barry, one of my favorites. Number 6 here, Jay, this is something we've talked about really since we've come back on the air at the end of July, early August. Anthony Richardson finishes as a top 5 quarterback. I feel like this one has crept up a little bit, maybe to 12, maybe to 8. Barry, for a bold prediction here, of course, goes with Richardson finishing as a top 5 quarterback. If he did that, and I know fantasy doesn't always correlate with awards, but doesn't it feel like he'd be right in the mix to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, even with Bijan being the runaway favorite?
Certainly, the tiebreak always goes to the quarterback if it's close, just because of the importance of the position. I think that Richardson, he does have so much upside because we saw what Justin Fields did last year, where I don't think Justin Fields was as good as his numbers last year, but he rode the variance of being a running quarterback and just having these 60, 70-yard runs all the time. And Anthony Richardson, he's going to be a player who, he's going to be their primary rusher a lot of the time until Jonathan Taylor comes back, if he does at all. So certainly a lot of scope. And the other thing about Richardson is just, we just haven't seen that much of him and his skill set. Unlike guys like Stroud and Bryce Young, who just had so many more pass attempts in games in college than Richardson had. So I think that Richardson, he is someone who could rock it up.
Barry, do you think the current IR situation for Jonathan Taylor and us having no idea where that situation goes actually elevates Richardson a little bit in fantasy because of how much the goal line work and overall rushing work will be put on his shoulders in Shane Steichen's offense?
Yeah, that's part of the thought process here, obviously, right? Is that like their best option, 1, 2, and 3, is somehow involving Anthony Richardson, whether it's throwing the ball, whether it's running the ball, whether it's running the ball when they get in close. And so, yeah, I mean, like, will he duck? The question is, will he, like, sort of duck it and run the way Justin Fields did, right, for those 60, 70-yard runs? Because Anthony Richardson has that kind of ability. He has that kind of speed. The question is whether he will do that, because that has not always been his tendency in college to do that. But I believe that without Jonathan Taylor there and wanting to keep things simple for Richardson as develops as a passer, the expectation here is that he runs more than not, and just, again, like, this is somebody who could have double-digit rushing touchdowns because of the lack of Jonathan Taylor and the lack of other weapons on that team. So again, bold prediction time. Top 5 is tough to get to, but you know, Richardson certainly has that within his range of outcomes.
Bold prediction number 7. Matthew, we go back to your Commanders for this one. Jahan Dotson outscores Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, that's another one that I don't think is really that bold if you sort of look at it. We talked about this. Final 5 weeks last year, almost a 24% target share. He had 3 touchdowns in that stretch. He was the 17th best wide receiver in fantasy football again over the final 5 games. We've talked about how scoring touchdowns is a skill. His first 4 games as a rookie, he scored 4 touchdowns. And now, second year with future Hall of Famer Sam Howell under center, throwing him the ball. Terry McLaurin already a little bit banged up here. Jahan Dotson, who was a first-round draft pick and not a shocking first-round draft pick. I mean, when he went, he was expected to. He had a first-round grade by every draft analyst that I talked to. I believe you as well, Connor, also had Dotson with a first-round grade last year. So the talent is there, and I think the opportunity will be there this year for him to outscore Terry McLaurin, who, by the way, remains one of my favorite wide receivers in the NFL.
I feel like people talk more about Jameson Williams than they do Jahan Dotson. Jameson Williams has 1 catch in his NFL career. Jahan Dotson caught 7 touchdowns last year. So I think that he is a guy who's just a little bit slept on, just because people weren't really, outside of Matthew, weren't just watching the Commanders last year and just didn't realize how dynamic he was.
And draft status.
Yeah, and he did make an impact. So I think that's very possible, particularly given that McLaurin's already banged up.
All right, number 8 here, Jay. Both Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook finish as top 20 running backs. So earlier we had the Lions duo of Montgomery and Gibbs finishing top 15 for a bold prediction. This bold prediction, Breece and Dalvin. We know both are coming off of injury. Breece's season was ended with a torn knee. Dalvin Cook came to camp late, not only because of when he signed the contract, but the shoulder injury. But I think the bottom line is, Jay, this Jets offense is going to use both of them. And honestly, there'll be plenty of times where both are on the field at the same time.
Yeah, I know. Look, it's a bold prediction, and I don't think this one is going to happen just because the Jets, they have an incredibly difficult schedule, particularly at the start of the season, so I'm not sure they're going to be running the ball an absolute ton. But I do agree with the sentiment that they should be bunched together more than the rankings suggest currently in terms of, or ADP suggests currently rather, and Breece is going RB 17, Cook RB 28. I mean, they paid Cook. They paid him a lot of money, and they're going to ease Breece in. I think there's a good chance that Dalvin Cook ends up being the number 1 running back from a fantasy perspective season long over Breece.
Barry, with a lot of unknown around the usage of Breece earlier in the season, and all of us have thought that it'll be a ramp up, not thrown back into the fire, how is your process of just projecting the usage of each of these guys in the same offense?
Honestly, the only thing I can do is look back to the 2021 season when Nathaniel Hackett was the offense coordinator for Aaron Rodgers. That's the last time these two were together, and they had 2 talented running backs in Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. And that year, Aaron Jones, 15 touches a game, was the running back 11. A.J. Dillon, 13 touches a game, was running back 31. Now, Dalvin Cook, I think, is going to catch the ball more than A.J. Dillon did that year. I also think there's going to be more touchdown equity because I think the team's going to be offense. They're going to be in scoring position more often. Breece Hall, I think, has more explosiveness, or hopefully will have more explosiveness in the second half of the season. So the idea of them being top 20 running backs is that they go fairly run heavy, taking some pressure off Rodgers. Rodgers allows them to be a much better offensive team. They'll be in scoring position more often, and because the defense, I think and the division they play in, there'll be some grinded out games where both guys get a decent amount of touches. So again, Dalvin Cook, who last year had over 1,300 yards from scrimmage, He's had 4 straight years of at least 1,100 rushing yards. He's the only running back in the NFL that can say that. 4 straight years of at least 1,100 or more rushing yards. Expectation here is that both guys wind up as top 20 running backs because they're both involved in the passing game, and they both should score a decent amount in a pretty good offense.
I'm with you. I think we see a lot of 2-back sets and a lot of 2 tight end sets from new Jets offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett, who's used to having 2 very capable running backs. Number 9 here, Barry, another late summer running back signing, and that is this bold prediction. Ezekiel Elliott scores 10 rushing touchdowns for the Patriots this year.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some things that Ezekiel Elliott at this point in his career doesn't do well, right, in terms of the pass catching, but, in terms of the breakaway speed or anything like that. But he's still incredibly good when you get in close. Last year, top 5 in touchdown rate on carries inside the 5-yard line among 25 most used running backs. Ramondre Stevenson outside the top 20 in that same stat. So I think it's one of the reasons that they brought him in there. Like, I think there's a scenario where Ezekiel Elliott is like this year's LeGarrette Blount in that offense, where, again, they like to run when they get in close. Bill Belichick has traditionally. Zeke is still one of the best finishes around the goal line that is in the NFL. And so Ramondre gets them there, and then Zeke cashes it in. Double-digit rushing touchdowns, I think, for Zeke is in the mix. Remember, this is a guy who was top 4 in the NFL in terms of rushing touchdowns among running backs last year. He had 12. I don't know. It's a bold prediction, but yeah, give me double-digit touchdowns for Ezekiel Elliott this year.
Jen, I think there's something to that. As much as we love the talent of Ramondre Stevenson, New England might not want to run him into the ground again, especially he's a guy that's had some injury in college, had some injury with a workload last season that was pretty significant. It feels like Zeke is not brought there just to maybe block in pass protection and get the occasional goal line handoff. He could have a real role with what we think will be a run-heavy, protect-the-ball offense.
Yeah, I think so. And Belichick has been very conservative with offenses the past few years. And I think that, with Ramondre, like you said, he has been banged up. He's on the injury report a lot at the back end of last year. He wasn't at full strength. There is one weird thing, though, where I think there's a perception that Damian Harris was the goal line back last year. He wasn't. Ramondre Stevenson had 75% of the goal line carries last year just head-to-head versus Harris, so that'll need to change. I think it will change just because Zeke was he's probably signed there for a reason, and there were some assurances about role. So yeah, I think in a very annoying way, Zeke could get to double-digit touchdowns.
Our last bold prediction here, number 10, Jay. Luke Musgrave finishes as a top 10 tight end. We've seen rookie tight ends traditionally struggle in terms of production. There are some outliers there, but to Barry's point of how he probably got here, Musgrave not only has pass-catching talent, but he played with the starters throughout all of the preseason in an offense that isn't loaded with guys that, demand a huge target volume.
Yeah, I think with these bold predictions, what you want is upside and variance, and someone like Luke Musgrave is kind of the epitome of that, where he's young, which just gives you upside and variance. He's in an offense where we don't really know anything about the quarterback and how good he's going to be. We don't really know anything about the wide receivers and how good they're going to be. We think Christian Watson is going to be the guy, but he's not as established as, Davante Adams was a couple of years ago. Romeo Doubs, we think, will have a bigger role, but we're not sure either. So there is a lot of canvas for Luke Musgrave to emerge as a guy.
Barry, is Luke Musgrave your top rookie tight end right now in terms of rankings, or is he still sitting behind somebody maybe like Dalton Kincaid or Sam Laporta that we've seen go pretty early in drafts so far?
No, listen, I'm not crazy. I have Kincaid the highest ranked among rookie tight ends this year. That said, to your point about preseason usage, right? I mean, he played basically every snap with the starters. He had, an almost 70% route participation when the starters were out there as well. We talked about this. Outside of Christian Watson, there's no one that demands targets. He is a size and speed freak who will be a matchup nightmare. And so on an emerging offense, I just think the amount of volume and opportunity for him, what do we talk about? Fantasy success comes from talent and opportunity. We think Luke Musgrave has talent, and I think he's also going to have opportunity on an offense that needs some playmakers. So, yeah, the other thing here is that the sneaky thing is to be a top 10 fantasy tight end. It doesn't take much. The production is so brutal that you just have to more or less have a pulse. And so I think with a little bit of touchdown luck, Luke Musgrave can get there. He's one of my favorite late round flyers in terms of just total upside. I have a ton of Luke Musgrave, including in our league, Jay and Connor.
And I think it says something. The Packers in this same draft, pretty close in rounds, drafted a high upside pass catching tight end in Luke Musgrave, and then more of a blocking tight end in Tucker Kraft. So a very defined role upcoming for Luke Musgrave in his rookie season. With that, we are going to go to our first break. But when we're back, we're looking at the hardest Week 1 players to rank. Here's your chance to win a VIP trip for 2 to watch a live taping of the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Go behind the scenes, meet the crew, and get a front row seat to all the fantasy insights and debates to help you win your league, live from the NBC Sports studio. Enter now at NBCSports.com/BerrySweeps. The contest ends September 10th. Also, Jay, I don't know if you knew this, is a little fun fact for you for today's show. This is the last day you can use J10 or Connor5 promo codes for the Rotoworld Draft Guide. And apparently, Matthew, Jay and I are tied right now for the amount of promo codes that have been used.
Yeah, there's been a little surge.
Yeah,
People are comparing it to the Seattle Mariners in the AL West, really making a run. J10's coming back from the dead to tie you up, Connor, and coming for the crown.
A little weird, to be perfectly honest. All the there's a big Australian contingent is what I've found. There's a lot of bots from Australia have bought the Rotoworld Draft Guide using promo code J10. The only thing that I can think here is that promo code Lawrence1 has sort of skewed it, much like these obscure third party candidates for president, where they skew the race. No one's actually really voting for him, but it turns just enough votes to make this a close race. So yes, do me a favor out there, whether it's promo code J10 or Connor5, buy the Rotoworld Draft Guide today. Make this a decision. Choose your fighter wisely. If you will, by the way, in the middle of the guillotine draft that we're doing a show league, guillotine league, and Alexa, who once again, by the way, took my ride or die. You remember last year she picked one spot ahead of me. She took Jalen Hurts in the first round. This year, somehow the fantasy gods put her one spot ahead of me in the draft, and of course she took Amon-Ra St. Brown in the first round. But I am up right now. I need another running back again. Guillotine, it's not about upside. It's about floor. You just want somebody that's not going to lose you the week. So he is completely unexciting, but I think the volume will be there. Give me some Cam Akers, who should get some nice volume for the Rams. He might be the only guy they got. He might average 2.5 yards per carry, but he might touch it 35 times a game. So anyway, Cam Akers is now a member. Connor, you're up, by the way. Just heads up. There you go.
Next
send me a text.
I just want to point out that Matthew's the first person to ever compare promo code Lawrence1 to Ralph Nader and his political campaigns. But anyway, let's go to running backs.
All right, hardest to rank for the week. Of course, we start with running backs. And these are the hardest running backs to rank for the week as we look at, of course, Javonte Williams, who comes in at RB24 against the Raiders. Isiah Pacheco, who comes in as RB32 against the Lions. Breece Hall, RB37. He will be playing the Bills on Monday Night Football. And then, of course, Barry, the freaking Eagles backfield that it's so hard to decipher where this thing is going, probably for the entire year until somebody deals with an unfortunate injury or two.
Yeah, I mean, as we go through this, right, with Javonte Williams, how much does Samaje Perine play? Jamel McLaughlin has been an unbelievable story this preseason, the rookie, the undrafted rookie. So is it a three-headed monster there in Denver? We just don't know how healthy Javonte Williams is. Remember, he played under 60% of snaps in two of the three full games that he played last year as a fully healthy rookie. Javonte Williams played under 60% of the snaps. So how much does he play? We talked about Pacheco earlier when we were talking about Kelce in terms of him versus McKinnon. CEH got more work in the preseason than we expected. And again, with Breece Hall, we know they want to ease him in slowly, and they have Dalvin Cook. So how much do you with any of these? And then, of course, with the Eagles running backs, it's a little bit of choose your fighter. You just have no idea. Kind of picking a dart. The usage was all over the place in the preseason. We've seen the usage kind of inconsistent last year, although Miles Sanders was the head of that committee. We don't know whether it's going to be Swift or Penny or, weirdly, Kenneth Gainwell. So picking which Eagles running back to rank the highest is tough. Where you put Hall and Pacheco. and Javonte Williams were the biggest, toughest questions for me as I approached my week 1 ranks.
I think there are 2 types of really difficult situations. One is the injury pitch counts, which is Breece Hall and Javonte Williams. And then 2 is the committees, which the Eagles are clearly. To me, the interesting thing with Kansas City and Pacheco is this Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing. Because we forget, like, everyone was super down on CEH going into last year. And then the first month of the season, CEH was a real thing. He scored 5 touchdowns. It was a little bit unsustainable, and then he just fell off a cliff. He got hurt. He wasn't really part of things by the end. But I don't know. Maybe CEH does come in and get 7-8 carries and really mess things up.
Maybe this is just how they like to go into the season.
Yeah.
I mean, a former first-round pick, they want to keep everybody afloat because the Chiefs know more so than anybody they are going to play another long NFL season when you look at their potential playoff road. Where, listen, Pacheco, you look at that at first, you're like, man, that feels low for him, especially against the Lions' run defense, which should be better, but it hasn't been proven yet. But you're right, Jay. The CEH problem being there is very interesting. How about the wide receivers, the most difficult wide receivers to rank for week 1 as we look at them here? Somebody that goes in the first round of nearly every draft that isn't Superflex, Stefon Diggs. He comes in as wide receiver 10 against the Jets, as he will see plenty of Sauce Gardner. The Jets don't move their corners, but he saw a lot of Sauce last year in 2 matchups. Terry McLaurin, who, of course, is dealing with a turf toe injury and is considered day-to-day. He comes in as wide receiver 28, although that matchup against Arizona, of course, is a juicy one. And then Michael Pittman there, Jay, at wide receiver 32 against Jacksonville. We just don't know a lot about what this Colts offense is going to want to do in week 1.
No, we don't. And to me, Stefon Diggs is the most interesting one because you have to start Stefon Diggs. Everyone is starting Stefon Diggs in every league, but I thought one of the sneaky, most incredible things about last season was the second time the Bills played the Jets, the Bills were using Diggs as a decoy on Sauce Gardner. They were just like, we're just not throwing in Sauce's direction at all. We'll figure out the rest of the offense there. So, I mean, I guess for our purposes, it doesn't matter because you're starting Diggs. We should get more clarity on McLaurin as we get closer to game time. And then Michael Pittman, I think he's just the guy who you can be pretty comfortable starting as your flex, low-end wide receiver too. So, I mean, he's a guy I think for the most part you can be comfortable starting.
Barry, when you look at McLaurin, as that's a situation we are watching literally day to day, what is the range of the bump that Jahan Dotson gets in the rankings if McLaurin is unfortunately ruled out the situation? I'm not asking for an exact spot, but is it 5 spots higher, 10 spots higher, or am I crazy?
If I knew Terry McLaurin was not playing, Dotson is easy top 20 wide receiver this week with, top 15 upside. The concern here is with McLaurin specifically, right, is even if he plays, how much does he play? Is he on a limited snap count? By the way, the over-under in this game is 38. It's the lowest on the slate. And by the way, we don't expect, whether it's Josh Dobbs or Clayton Tune under center for the Cardinals, we don't expect them to come in and put up a lot of points. If Washington gets up big in the first half, do they say, hey, Terry, let's take it easy, even if he's not on a pitch count? Like, if they're winning big here, like, do they, so just in terms of, is he going to play? How much is he going to play? How much are the Commanders going to need to throw in a game that we think they should easily beat the Arizona Cardinals? At least I do. And you mentioned Stefon Diggs, right? The Jets also allowed passing touchdowns at the lowest rate last year. Now, obviously, everyone is starting Stefon Diggs, but it's certainly between that and Sauce Gardner makes you a little bit nervous as well. And we've got no idea what this Colts offense is going to look like. Specifically, how much are they going to pass? There's in theory that when they do pass, it's going to go to Michael Pittman, but Michael Pittman wasn't Michael Pittman last year. And so, especially in his first game, in a game in which they're playing, I think, a pretty good Jaguars defense, you're a little bit nervous about Michael Pittman. The other one that wasn't mentioned there in terms of toughest to rank, similar to the Eagles' backfield, is the Baltimore wide receivers. Is it Zay Flowers? Is it Odell Beckham Jr.? Is it Rashad Bateman? They play the Ravens, right? And we don't know about the health of Mark Andrews. So if Mark Andrews is out, you'd think all of them – I'm sorry, they don't play the Ravens. They play the Texans. The Ravens play the Texans. So in theory, a pretty good matchup, but they could also just get up big and be running a lot in the second half. My expectation is that Todd Monken's going to want to show off this new offense. Lamar Jackson's going to want to get out there and really light it up. But one of those guys, I bet you one of those guys has a big game. The problem is trying to decipher from the preseason usage and everything we've heard, which one of those Ravens wide receivers ends up having a big game against the Texans.
That takes us to the hardest tight ends to rank for week 1, and no surprise, Barry, who sits at the top, a player that drove a lot of people absolutely crazy last season, and Kyle Pitts, who comes in at tight end 7. They will play the Panthers and Dalton Kincaid. the rookie first-rounder for the Bills, comes in at tight end 25 against a tough Jets defense here. Barry, what do you expect for Pitts, especially after such up-and-down usage following a promising rookie season? But now he's also got plenty of the football to share with Drake London in year 2 and, of course, Bijan Robinson, another top 10 pick added to this offense.
Right, a divisional game against the Carolina Panthers, who have a better defense than I think they get credit for. But like, there's the argument to be made. Like, listen, he didn't get any looks last year. Now they added Bijan Robinson. He's not going to get any looks, right? This is the guy who had 12 fantasy points or under in 21 of 27 career games. I mean, think about that. 21 of 27 career games, he's had 12 points or less. Having said that, you could also make the argument defenses are not going to have to focus on Bijan Robinson, and Drake London will take some coverage, so maybe Kyle Pitts gets freed up and he gets some usage. So wide range of outcomes. We also don't really know what Desmond Ridder's going to look like. We had a small sample size last year, year 2 in the system. We hope he's better. We don't know for sure. So Kyle Pitts is very tough. And then again, we have high expectations for Dalton Kincaid, but again, to your point, tough matchup and a lot of weapons for Josh Allen, especially in this. You've got Dawson Knox there as well. You know, they've got Gabe Davis and Stefon Diggs. They've got the running back. So really tough to rank each one of those guys.
I think on Pitts, a big thing in betting is being able to just avoid recency bias and throw out overreactions that aren't based on enough that is solid. And I think Kyle Pitts, 2 years ago, he was drafted as a generational tight end prospect, number 4 in the draft. And then his rookie season, he delivered. He had 110 targets. He was over 1,000 receiving yards. Didn't get any. He got 1 touchdown, which is, I think, a bit fluky. And then last year was just the disaster. And so are there reasons why that's not real? And I think there is one reason it can not be real. It's Marcus Mariota. He's not very good. I mean, do you think Pitts got worse last year, Connor?
No, I think it was a little perplexing at times, the lack of a desire, it felt like, from Arthur Smith to get him involved, right? You always say get him involved, and that could be, you know, getting him going on a tight end leak. It's just a short pass to get him a catch and run opportunity. You can get him at manufactured looks in the red zone. But you're right, Jay. When you get away from all that, Mariota couldn't throw the ball. Like, legitimately could not throw the ball. And there was some promise in that passing offense when Desmond Ridder came in at the end of last season. We still need to see it over a full sample size. I think it helps Drake London a lot more than it helps Kyle Pitts. So, I mean, that's why he's ranked where he is. You take him after the top tight ends, but people still believe in Kyle Pitts. So we'll see where that one goes.
People were talking about him as potentially, you know, going before Kelce last year. Like, he was, people were like, can I draft Kyle Pitts as tight end 1?
And quite frankly, in our lifetime, I don't know if we'll ever see a tight end go top 5 in the NFL draft this year. And I say that in a class that has Brock Bowers. He's a better prospect than Kyle Pitts. I just think the position is never drafted like that, which made the hype for Kyle Pitts even crazier than we've ever seen. So, all right, we'll close this out with the hardest quarterbacks to rank for week 1. And this starts with somebody who we're waiting to get health clarity on in Joe Burrow. Zach Taylor, we played the sound from him yesterday, what he had to say. It does seem promising for Joe Burrow. He comes in as QB6, facing a tough Browns front. And Deshaun Watson, who did not look very good in his return last year, coming in as QB13 against a Bengals defense that is well coached and has depth and quietly has a very good secondary. So, Barry, I know you were very adamant yesterday that you believe Joe Burrow is playing. I think the rest of the world believes that as well. But, you know, this is a pretty tough matchup against that Browns front as well.
It is, and if you think back to 2021 when he was coming up the ACL, those first 4 weeks he averaged just 26 pass attempts a game, 27, both close to it. And that's still nice, right? But look at what he did from weeks 5 on. Almost 35 pass attempts a game. You know, almost 10 pass attempts more per game. So, I mean, they definitely limited him somewhat in those first 4 games. So the problem is like, we think he's playing, but how aggressive is he going to be? Or is this one of those AFC North, you know, kind of stereotypical games where we're going to, you know, it's going to be a lot of Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon going back and forth as they try to sort of ground and pound each other and wind each other down, especially with Burrow, you know, coming off of the injury and not having a lot of preseason prepare. Like, you don't expect them to really be the high-flying Bengals that we've seen at other times. So trying to figure out what Joe Burrow is going to do this weekend at Cleveland is tough, as is the guy on the other side of the ball, Deshaun Watson. I honestly, like, what Deshaun Watson shows up, it is the Houston guy that we saw a couple of years ago who was a, you know, top 5 fantasy quarterback, or is it the guy we saw last year out of the final 5 games that looked, you know, Mariota-esque? honestly, who looked like he shouldn't be playing in place of Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett was the better Browns quarterback. We've talked about that quite a bit. So he's really tough to rank against a not as good Cleveland Brown. I mean, the Bengals matchup is not as tough as the Browns defense, but the Bengals still have a pretty good defense. And again, we've got no concept of what we're going to see from Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I think Deshaun Watson is the one guy in football this year who you have to be quickest to adjust your prior on after what we see in week one. Because if he's bad, if he is the same guy that he was in the back end of last season, that is a massive red flag. Because this is a good Bengals defense. It's not the Cowboys defense, so it's not an absolute monster.
No.
So if Watson's no good, then that is a huge problem.
Especially he's playing behind a good offensive line. They have talent at wide receiver. They've added talent at wide receiver. They have one of the best running backs in football. And Kevin Stefanski is a good play caller, a good head coach. So I'm with you all the way. The Deshaun Watson watch will be fascinating this season in fantasy, considering where he's getting drafted. And with that, we will take our last break here. But when we're back, it is time for last call. We might talk about our Fantasy Football Happy Hour League one more time, about those rosters.
What did you do, Connor?
I adopted a 100-pound dog this weekend. Yes, so in honor, we did the read for the rescue a couple weeks ago, and
It worked on you?
I mean, it was already in the cards kind of before that, but yeah, a half Newfie, half Border Collie. So we'll show some pictures at some point this week. A very fun Labor Day weekend.
Yeah,
A new member of the family. Yes, this is the newest family member of the Fantasy Football Happy Hour and the newest family member of my small family. This is Gracie. She is almost 100 pounds. I don't know how I did this either. Half Newfie, half Border Collie. She is an absolute delight. And now an avid watcher of the show. There's rumors she might even stick around for one of our marathons one of these weekends, Jay.
Well, I just hope you don't take everything that Matthew said on that show too literally. Otherwise, Gracie's going to have a sister that's a koala bear carrying around a can of Foster's or something.
Well, look, you know what? She has good taste. I appreciate it. And hopefully your dog listens to me and, doesn't draft Michael Thomas. You know what I mean? Hopefully she goes more with Chris Olave, Connor, who you and I believe will be the best Saints wide receiver, not Michael Thomas, the way Jay does.
And what's even better, Matthew, is that
vote.
I think we believe Rashid Shaheed could be the second best Saints wide receiver. All right, we'll be back tomorrow.
Sir. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay? Respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.